FM 107.1.
So now I've got with me in the studio Christine Kelly. Christine is yet another friend of mine. Christine is the president of Birdlife Southern Highlands. I'm a member of Birdlife Southern Highlands. I have been for a number of years. And Christine, in fact, was one of my very early birding mentors when I first joined the club. She's been very helpful to me in learning lots of things along the way. So, Christine, tell us about Birdlife Southern Highlands. What does Birdlife Southern Highlands do?
Well, Birdlife Southern Highlands is a branch of Birdlife Australia. So our main head office is in Melbourne and we're a branch. Our branch has approximately 110 members.
Wow.
A proportion of those members are active regularly and some are only active on a casual basis. We aim to basically educate people, to encourage people to spend time in the environment. And of course, we're involved in conservation. Mm-hmm. And I guess the big issue that we've been involved in recent times is the cat containment policy.
Oh, yes.
The cat containment policy has been introduced now into Canberra, and all Canberra suburbs now have to abide by that. We're not against cats. We're not opposed to cats. And I think that that's a very important point to get across, that people shouldn't think that because there's an opportunity to change the rules on cats that people are opposed to them. So the cats need to be microchipped and they need to be kept within the confines of your own property. And they're really the two main rules. And I think if you think about the number of native animals, not only birds, but animals and birds, that are impacted by roaming cats and now by feral cats, then I think that you can see that a cat containment policy within our shire would be a very good thing, and we're going to continue to advocate for that, particularly now that we're getting a new council.
Yeah, look, that would be great. I've got a wildlife camera in my backyard at the moment, and I have got ringtail possums on the ground at night time, and I've got a brushtail that's wandering around on the ground with a baby clinging onto her back, and it's absolutely gorgeous to see these images coming through on the camera. But last night, during the night, I caught a cat on the camera, and this cat's got a collar on it, so it is a domestic cat that somebody's letting roam at night. We've got birds nesting in our hedges. We've got all kinds of tempting things for cats. And yeah, I would really like to see cat containment being brought in locally, and good on the club for pushing that. But Birdlife Southern Highlands does lots of other activities as well. What kind of things does the club do?
Well, we have a list of activities that we try to encourage our members to participate in. And probably the most important one and the easiest one for people to partake of are our 6 member nights that are held throughout the year. And at those member nights, we try to have a guest speaker on a wide range of environmental issues, or sometimes it's just a members' night where members will talk about things that they've been doing. We run 2 outings a month, and we try to run one of those during the week and one on a weekend each month, but obviously the weather sometimes holds on those sorts of things. There are 2 main things. We also publish a quarterly magazine. All the contributors are local members, and it's produced by a volunteer of our group, and that's only available digitally. To join our group, you need to be a member of Birdlife Australia, and then they notify us of new members, and we then take up the challenge to try and encourage people to join us.
So just to make that clear, one pays for membership in Birdlife Australia, but if you then opt to be part of Birdlife Southern Highlands, there's no further cost.
No further cost at all, absolutely not. And in fact, we really do try to encourage people across the whole range of experiences with bird watching, and to that end we have our own sets of binoculars that we're able to lend to people who want to come on outings and don't have their own binoculars. We always have somebody at an outing who is very experienced and can actually mentor these younger or less experienced bird watchers. And I've certainly learnt an enormous amount just by listening to what's being told to other people.
It's so true.
Often it's not a question that you would ask yourself, but as soon as you hear somebody talking about something, you think, oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Agreed.
And I'll take that home and remember that.
Yeah.
Attempt to remember it. So we also have taken on just recently quite an interesting task, which is the guardianship of a key biodiversity area, which was allocated to us through an organisation called BigNet, and we've been allocated the area of Fitzroy Falls. We've got 3 areas that we've set aside that we try to survey twice, ideally 4 times a year, but we have set ourselves the challenge of twice a year. That's really to just try and keep an idea of the health of that particular area. And we can take novices on this walk because there's always experienced people. And we do a 20-minute 2-hectare survey, and we all start at the same time, and then we can, on our way back to the meeting point, we can then count the birds that were outside of that 20-minute or 2-hectare survey, and that all goes into the data as well.
And so what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of that is really to just maintain a record of what's happening in the area as the population around it increases, and as things like bushfires and drought come along, and we can then monitor the birds that are moving in and out and try to keep some sort of, we have no control over it, but try to have some balance so that we don't have too many of the very bossy birds that take over, and try to encourage, by monitoring, try to encourage the correct balance for the small birds as well.
What's the best part about being a member of Birdlife Southern Highlands? Maybe I should answer this instead of you.
I think probably the best part is just being able to learn. Being interested in birds is something that I personally have been involved in since I was a teenager. I'm not a twitcher. I'm not somebody who goes out keeping a list and seeking that one last bird, before I have to give up bird watching. I just enjoy being out in the open, meeting people who've got similar interests to me, and learning about the birds and the environment, because it's not only about learning about birds, because you can't begin to know where the birds are unless you understand a bit more about the environment in which the birds need to be. So I think the best part about being a member of the club is just learning. Actually taking the opportunity to learn.
I couldn't agree more, in that after I joined the club, I was interested in the birding aspect, but as you say, the more time I've spent outside, the more I've seen the overall picture and the relationships between the plants and the birds and the seasons and, all of the rest of it. And that's actually what's brought me to this place, because now I see much more of the overall picture, and I'm really keen to communicate that to other people. So, birds were kind of my gateway drug into nature.
Yes, exactly. That's and I'd have to say that it's exactly the same in my case. And I think if you look generally across the membership, particularly the very active members, it's the same for them. So there's the friendship side of it, but there's the learning side, and there's just the awareness of what's around you.
Learning to notice things.
Learning to notice. And I watched last night a couple of episodes of Julia Zamiro's Great Aussie Walks, and right at the very beginning of that, she says, pause and look around you. No matter where you are, just pause and look around you. And I think that that's a really interesting statement, because we can all do it, whether you're in the middle of a city or if you're in the middle of the bush.
Yeah, that's good advice. And what's the thing that the group's done that you're most proud of?
I'd have to say it's the emergence finally of our bird hide.
How did I know that was going to be the answer?
I'd have to say really that is it. I mean, we've done a couple of really interesting things since I've been involved. We were contracted by Greening Australia to do surveys along the Wingecarribee River, and that project is called the Wall to Wollondilly. So it's actually from the wall of the Fitzroy Dam out to where the Wollondilly River meets the Wingecarribee River on the other side of Berrima. So we haven't been able to survey the whole of that area, but we've surveyed designated areas, designated sites within that long river corridor, and we've been doing that now for about 6 years. And we've been able to see how the plantings around the river and the cleaning up of the river has actually encouraged birds back. Sometimes not the most desirable birds, but they have come back. And I think that that's the thing that's important about it. The health of the river now can support that wildlife, whereas before the river was dying, it was choking.
Yeah.
So I think that is. But really, I think the bird hide is really our biggest achievement.
So I know this story, but tell the listeners the story.
The bird hide has been in negotiations for about a decade. It would have been very easy to give up over and over again as we faced the various hurdles. It started as an idea that we would get some land from National Parks and Wildlife at the Cecil Hoskins Reserve. Well, that didn't come to fruition.
No.
So then we decided that what we really needed to do was we needed to find a suitable location that was on council land, because as a group we weren't able to purchase land in this area. And it's not just the land that the bird hide sits on, but it's also the access. So, it wasn't just having to buy a small apron of land, we had to buy access as well. So we decided that the next port of call was the council. So we set about searching for a suitable block of land that the council owned that was actually a block that could be rezoned to be used for this purpose. And we finally found a block of land at the Welby Weir. The thing that you need for a bird hide, apart from access and isolation, is that you need access to water, and you also need access to bushland. So it needs to be somewhere where it's accessible but isolated. And then it's got permanent water, like a dam or a lake or a river. River's not so good, but in our case the weir, and then surrounded by bushland. Now, our particular site also has some radiata pines on it, which we're not terribly concerned about because they do encourage the larger cockatoos to come in. It's close to the water's edge, where we have some reeds, and across the water we have a very good bushland. So it's an ideal location. So then the negotiations had to start.
So can you tell us now the location?
Yes, I can. The hide is now in place, and it's located on the Welby Weir, almost on the corner of Wombian Caves Road and the Old Hume Highway. But to access it, you need to go beyond Wombian Caves Road towards Mittagong, and there's a small road that leads you down to a pretty much unformed car park, and then you have to walk about, I'm going to guess, it's about probably 300 metres, maybe a little bit more. There's a locked gate, but there is also an open pedestrian access that we can walk through. And over time, we're planning to do some more bush planting there, probably with the help of local land care people and certainly with the help of the council, to just bush up the area a bit more as you walk towards it. And it's very unlikely to ever get flooded. So that's where it is.
So can anyone go there now?
It will always be open to the general public. The only thing that we will ask, and we will put up some signage over the next few weeks, we will ask people to make sure that they shut and securely latch the door so that we don't disturb anybody that's living nearby
Oh, very good. Well, congratulations. It has been a long
battle.
haul.
We were very lucky because we were granted a Premier's discretionary grant, which helped us fund the purchase of the actual hide and the concrete and the transportation and so on. And we also were supported by the administrator. So we were actually very lucky that we were able to sort of get through some of the red tape.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah.
So
that's great. That's
So
excellent.
now we've just got to prepare for the grand opening.
So you must get asked this all the time. What's your favourite bird?
Floss, I thought about this and I decided it was actually not an easy one to answer because I think it just depends on what you're seeing on the day. In recent times, one of our members has been able to identify brown-headed honeyeaters, and they are very cute. Fortunately, she's able to identify them by their call, so we all know what we're looking for once she identifies them. So they're very cute, but they're not very common. So it would be easy for me to say at the moment that's my favourite bird. But I think at the end of the day, I have to sort of lean slightly towards the common old magpie.
Oh, yeah.
He really is such a cute bird, and the range of contact calls that they have, if anybody actually stops and listens to them, they are really quite remarkable. And they're not afraid of humans.
No.
And they've got a remarkable capacity to identify the humans that they live with.
Yes,
So
that's
in
right.
all the years that we've lived in the Highlands, we've never once been attacked by a magpie. So I think, I could choose something very exotic, but I think at the end of the day, I'd have to say I do love these birds. They're survivors,
Yes.
and they're a critical...
They're inquisitive too, aren't they?
Exactly.
I like
they're
that
a
characteristic.
very critical part of our everyday life, and people tend to
We're
overlook
inclined.
them.
Agreed. Since you've mentioned brown-headed honeyeaters, I'll tell you one little interesting thing that I've seen recently. I was out looking for glossy black cockatoos with a couple of friends, both members of Birdlife Southern Highlands, and we found a koala. And the reason we found a koala, which was right up the top of the canopy, was because some birds were making a racket. And so we followed the birds to see what it was they were making a fuss about. And there was a pair of brown-headed honeyeaters pulling fur off the koala and flying away with it, presumably to line their nest.
Yes, yeah.
Beautiful things, yeah. And a final question. Have you got a favourite place to go birding in the Highlands?
Well, I guess I probably should be a bit loyal to the Wall to Wallendelly project because I do in fact survey part of the bicycle track that runs from Cecil Hoskins around to near to the Oxley College. And it really doesn't matter what time of the year or what time of the day that I go there. I always enjoy it. There are people out walking,
Yes.
sometimes with their dogs, sometimes with their babies, sometimes purposefully trying to get to work on time on their push bike and really don't want you in their way. But the number of people who will stop and speak to you if you're out with a camera and a set of binoculars and just meandering along that path. So I guess in lots of ways that would have to be one of my favourite spots. It's where I go regularly and, yeah.
Yeah, and along that track, the endangered dusky wood swallows come back.
They do come back, yes.
Round about
indeed.
now.
Yes.
And one of the members of our club recently saw a red-backed kingfisher.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes, is that news to
how
you?
lovely. That's news to me, yes.
One of the friends of the podcast, Anna, was down there only about a fortnight ago and has taken some photos of a red-backed kingfisher. So you do see the occasional
That would be
unusual
out
bird.
of area.
I think it's supposed to be within, but a rare sighting or something.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us, Christine, about Birdlife Southern Highlands. I hope that our conversation has inspired a few people to join the club and come and see what we do. Get out and about with us outside, learn a whole lot more. You can come to our members' nights, whether you're a member or not. You'll see those advertised on Facebook, on the Birdlife Southern Highlands Facebook page, or we often mention them on Going Wild in the Highlands as well. Thank you, Christine.